Good evening, everybody. Welcome to tonight's edition of Shop Talk, hosted by the Triangle Area SQL Server Users Group. So we have with us the full cast and crew for the evening. Directly to my right, Mala Mahadevan. How you doing, Mala?
Doing well, thank you. Good evening, everybody.
Excellent. And directly to my southerly direction, Mike Christensen. How you doing, Mike?
I'm doing well, thanks.
Excellent.
Sorry for the bed. I got a 2-for-1 deal, so I just threw in an extra bed here.
So at first when Mike logged in, I'm like, oh, he must be somewhere else. He must be at some Airbnb. But wait, no, I recognize those portraits. Something has changed here. And it turns out the camera location has changed. And also the bed wasn't there before, but
That's why I'm not allowed to go to Costco. Look what happens.
buy a pack of 8 beds. I understand. And in an angle that I can't describe in just one cardinal direction, Tracy Baggiano. How you doing, Tracy?
Doing good. How are you?
Fantastic. So I see you've got your the Summit haircut all set up.
Yep. Summit haircut and colors. Yep. Ready to go.
Okay, so shop talk for everyone. If this is your first time here, the whole idea is it's a little bit of after work chat, but driven in a kind of a Q&A style. So if you have questions about SQL Server, data platform topics, drop them in chat here. Give us something to talk about. Otherwise, I have a list over on this side of my screen, and we'll usually follow that list when chat hasn't found a way to come up with some great topics, which sometimes you do. I'm counting on you, chat. I'm always counting on you. Basically, what has happened is I've become codependent on chat. I'm no longer capable of coming up with topics on my own, and therefore we need chat to help us through here. So with that in mind, Anders says, sharpening my pencil to derail me. I guarantee that the derailment will happen today. I'm not even going to try to avoid derailment. But what I am going to do is drop in a link to the past Summit Precons, or the past Data Community Summit Precons for this year. So we've got a whole slew of them for Monday and Tuesday of Summit, which is November 8th and the 9th. And Mala, you wanted to talk about this for a little bit.
So, me and my colleague Kathy Kellenberger, we interviewed the women who are presenting on the precons. There are about 7 people, and we interviewed all of them. We asked some questions, including a few tech questions. You may find Kimberly's interview particularly interesting because we scheduled it for 5 minutes and we ended up talking to her for 20 minutes. So it was a lot of fun. We asked a few in-depth technical questions too on what they'll be covering in their conference. So it is a good way for you if somebody on your team is looking to understand more about what they're going to be presenting on. It's a good way to understand, and I'll post the link there for people. We don't have a lot of time, so we only interviewed the women who are presenting, not everybody. Oh, Kevin's already posted it. But it's one way for you to understand what it is about, and it is only $200. So I believe it's a bargain compared to what precons used to be with the summit, which was like $400 upwards. And a lot of people, some people, not a lot of people, some people are donating the proceeds to charity. Tracy's giving all of hers to the foster kids cause that she's been promoting in a big way. So it is a way to learn something. It's also a way to donate to a good cause. So please consider it.
Speaking of Tracy, she's doing a precon on Azure SQL Fundamentals, so you can check that out. That's on the Tuesday of Summit. There are 16 precons in total. You can probably find at least one of interest. All right, that was our first topic, but also don't forget that the Data Community Summit itself is free. So if you want to attend sessions Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, that is free. Sign up at pastdatacommunitysummit.com. And at this point, all of those sessions, I believe, are hosted, are posted. Yeah, they're all up there. So go check it out. 180 general sessions. Plus, there are some lightning talks. Now, have all the lightning talks been posted? Looks like a fair number of them have. As I'm going through the list, I'm looking for a particular name just to see if it's there, and that'll tell me if everything has been posted. But there are actually more lightning talks than I thought, and there's one in particular that I wanted to call out with this, and that is session 283.530. Now, everybody should know innately by heart what session 283.530 is, but just in case you don't, we have someone here who can tell us all about session 283.530. That would be you, Mike.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. I was accepted for a lightning talk. I appreciate it. And it is focused on TriPass. It is the things that I have learned and been reinforced by joining the group. I joined the group in 2018, and thanks to all you all, I have kind of doubled down on learning SQL. I use it every day, but I'm not that good at it. So I have gotten a lot better. So my lightning talk is kind of 5 key things that I do differently now that I've joined you all and learned from you all. Search arguments, and I don't use order by unless I absolutely have to. There's a bunch of things there that I think are really key for people that are learning that would help them have more performant, better SQL. So hopefully you can check it out.
Yeah, and it's only 10 minutes long, so definitely worth at least 7 minutes of your time. Probably worth the whole 10, maybe even worth 12. We'll find out. I mean, sign up for Past Data Community Summit. Go check out Mike's session. It's a 10-minute lightning session, so you'll be able to add it to the schedule and figure out when it is. I was going to do a lightning talk on cursors, but the problem is the cursors were too slow. Set that one up too easy, Anders. All right. Our next topic of the evening is one I'm gonna post a link here. This is Anthony Nocentino's blog. He's got a new URL. So I thought it was the while clause that caused the problem. I mean, that could be. It could be. So Anthony has a new website. He's posted over the older posts from his older website, but basically had this setup of what he uses for his desktop, and that includes recording his Pluralsight videos. So if you don't know, Anthony is a renowned Pluralsight author. He's actually got several Kubernetes videos in a series. Does a really good job of explaining Kubernetes administration from the ground up. Has a couple of them on SQL Server and Linux. Basically does a really good job. Has a naturally excellent voice that I wish I could steal. I can't steal his voice, but I can steal his recording gear. So on that link, he's got a whole list of all of the different recording equipment that he uses, which I think if you're interested in broadcast, if you're interested in creating videos, creating content, this is sort of the type of thing where you don't need this to start out. Not at all. However, there comes a certain point where if you're a professional podcaster or if you're doing this for a living, like you're Anthony, where a fair amount of your revenue actually comes from developing videos, developing content, then taking a more detailed look at recording gear can be great. So a lot of people will start out, yeah, he does have a Mac, but I'm not going to hold that against him too much. I'm going to hold it against him a bit, but not too much. So you can avoid that part. Just get a better computer. All Mac SaaS aside, yeah, he has a Mac server. I know he's committed.
He's full stack.
Yeah, I mean they don't even make those things anymore, as far as I recall. But he's very committed to that world. Don't get committed to that world. All right. Although I guess he makes the big bucks from Pluralsight, so he can afford to buy a Mac. So anyhow, I did want to talk a little bit about audio because we've all had different setups over time. I I mean, Mike's got a new headset right there. I know Mala's had different headsets. Tracy's had different setups. For the user group, we've had different setups. We've had videos where we use a big Jabra speaker because that was the only thing that I could get into the room. And admittedly, that was a little bit of a challenge, but Jabra speakers are really good for group conversation. They're just not quite as good for broadcasting high quality audio. It's good phone call quality, not necessarily recorded video that I want to share with people quality. But I've used Jabras. I'm okay with them. They're, like I said, they're certainly great for conferences. If I'm speaking at a conference call, if I'm just chatting with work colleagues, that's fine. That's also definitely a step up from whatever inbuilt microphone you have in a laptop. Those things are barely usable, but bare minimum, if all that you need is just some way of registering your voice and communicating audio, then yeah, it can work. But I'll tell you up front, you want to get away from that laptop audio mic as quickly as possible. From there, I would say you have a few different options. And Anders says that the Jabra on my desk saves my rear sitting on 18-hour-long upgrade calls. Oh, absolutely. You know, if you're able to walk around, that Jabra can pick up conversations from across a room, which is a reason why you may not necessarily want to use it in a noisy area, because it can pick up conversations. But you can walk over 10 feet away at least, and people won't really notice. So it's got that good quality to it. It's a very good unidirectional microphone. But as you get to creating something where you want better audio quality, that's where you really want to focus in on directional microphone, in part because there's a lot of loud noises around you. Like there's actually an airplane that's coming overhead right now, and hopefully you weren't able to hear that, because if you were able to hear that, that would kind of suck. That mean I have my setup wrong, but there's no way you could hear it. I actually had a test earlier with this rig where I had my fan running in the room here and did not register. But you go one level up from a Jabra, and there you're talking about like the blue Snowball, the blue Yeti. You're talking like that $60 to $100 USB microphone, which has a condenser built in, which has all the components and equipment just built in there. And that's a good microphone. I'm never going to knock the blue Yeti. We used it for TriPass meetings. I used it up till this weekend. That was the microphone that would be hidden kind of up here. It works really well, and it's reasonably priced. You can usually find it on sale someplace, either the Snowball or the Yeti, and get that. If you're not that familiar with audio equipment, you just want something to start out with, that's a really good option.
So tweet
ahead,
about it. No, I just wanted, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just wanted to say, tweet about it if you're on Twitter. Somebody who has a spare or an extra might wind up sending it to you for free. That's how I got my blue 80. I'm lazy, I haven't set it up yet. But people have a lot of spare equipment these days that they don't know how to get rid of. So I recommend trying that. And you'll be surprised, you can get some really good things for free.
By the way, what's really funny about this whole conversation is Solomon just sent me an email. He's like, hey, can you talk about things like software and equipment for presentations? So Solomon, yes, I can talk about that. It just happened to be on the agenda tonight. So you did a great job of anticipating the way we were going to go. So, all right, that blue Yeti, perfectly reasonable. You may want to use some software with it to kind of tweak it at the edges, because there can be a difference between just raw Yeti sound and using a tool like Voice Meter. Voice Meter will take a while to get into. I mean, I'll come up say up front that I have very little audio engineering experience. I am definitely not good at this. I can follow along with instructions and have learned a bit over the past year, but not the type of person you would go to if you wanted detailed conversation on what the specific elements of all of this are and how you can make things the best. I can give you some of the pieces of info that I've learned and hopefully pass that along, but I'm certainly no expert in this area, which I'd say is on net not a bad thing, because it says that you don't have to be an expert to get good quality audio. You have to be willing to put in some time. You'd have to be willing to put in some effort, but there are people who have come up with solutions, and you can follow on from that solution. Like what Anthony has in here, I actually have exactly the same equipment because I bought it specifically because he mentioned the stuff. So previously, Yeti microphone, good quality, does work really well. Not going to complain about it. However, the one thing about the Yeti is that it is really good at picking up ambient noise. So if you have something nearby that happens, you have a fan on, you have maybe a loud light, a fluorescent light that's humming, you have people talking in the other room, the Yeti is liable to pick up some of that, especially while you're speaking. So you can set up a noise gate that will kind of filter out some of the lower decibel elements, like a conversation in the other room. But as you start talking and that noise gate opens, if it's a software-based noise gate, that audio is going to start coming in. That conversation will start coming in the background, or the typing in the background, or clicking of the mouse. So if you're walking through a presentation, clicking the mouse, then that will get picked up. The Yeti is going to be good at that. So even if you set it up so that it's focused directional on you, you're still going to have some noise. Most of the time, though, that's not too important. If you're dedicated, you can edit that in post-processing. If you're not that dedicated, you can just roll with it. There's plenty of examples of good, well laid out presentations that will, yeah, you can hear a mouse click every once in a while. That's not distracting. So Andrew says, I need the IBM PC Junior keyboard. I had my buckling spring keyboard. I actually ended up buying a new keyboard specifically to get rid of the buckling spring from this presentation machine. I still have the buckling spring, folks. Don't worry. Don't worry. I love the buckling spring keyboard concept. If you're not familiar with that, let me do a quick search here. And Unicomp actually creates this thing. This is a replica of the original IBM keyboard, and it uses a technology called buckling spring, which basically you have a lever that you push down, and it's going to try to hit the It's going to strike the keyboard board to indicate, yes, I've pressed a key. There's a spring in there that forces you have to push, and then once the spring breaks, then you can push down. And that breaking is that clack sound that you hear on one of those 1980s keyboards. So it is a very good experience. Excellent about intentionality when typing. You can rest your hands on the keyboard. You're not going to type a letter until you put a bit of force into it. But it's pretty loud. So not something you necessarily want to have for presentations, as much as I love it. But I ended up getting, still sticking with a mechanical keyboard, but this is much quieter mechanical. There you go. So, Mike, is that the Snowball? So what's your experience with the Snowball, Mike?
It's been very successful. So my wife got this for she does health education videos, and she and her colleague used this, and it worked very well.
Great. Is that USB or XLR?
It is USB.
Okay, 'cause it looked like it had a little fat end there that almost looked like XLR, but
It's USB to mini. Well, it's not mini display.
Gotcha.
Port.
Okay, just from the angle. Okay, so right, that's USB-A, the printer style port. So
There's newer ones. This is a few years old.
True, but it still works.
So is $100 something is worth, that keyboard is worth that much, Kevin, in your opinion?
In my opinion, yes.
Okay.
I mean, basically,
well, your opinions are usually pretty balanced and not because something is fancy or expensive. That's why.
Yes, but I have very interesting tastes. So the keyboard, I live by buckling spring. I mean, that's my daily work keyboard for years. It's also a keyboard that you can hear from 2 counties over. And
Can you meet Marshall's recorded that keyboard noise? You can hear it. You can hear it downstairs, the one floor below at the elevator. You know the guys in the office.
I did not know that, but yeah, I mean, I can believe that. So Andrew says
that's when everybody else is out, of course.
Oh, yeah.
There is nothing else going on. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Andrew says that they can be a challenge to type on if you're not used to them. Right, because you have to put more force than you normally would. Modern keyboards are membrane based, so it's basically a little button. It's a rubber button that you push, and the process of pushing the button spreads the force down to strike the board. And so the upside to that is you don't have to put that much force on it to register. The downside to it is that you get a slippery feeling where I didn't push the key. I just put my finger on the J, and now I've got 3 J's here. And also, I pushed the J, and yet nothing happened. So you get kind of the worst of both worlds with membranes. But they tend to be very cheap, and they tend to be quiet. And so that's your $20 keyboard. They're at that level, they're almost all membrane. When you get to more expensive keyboards, you start getting into the mechanical switches. And the mechanical switches, the Cherry MX switches or the Razer switches, they are good. This keyboard here is a Razer keyboard. It's the yellow line. It's like they're not switches. They've got their own name. But it's pretty quiet, especially for a mechanical keyboard, and works fairly well. Buckling spring, 40-year-old technology, but the thing is a beast of a keyboard. It lasts for a very long time, and if you want that tactile feel, if you want that pressure, then you won't want to go back to membranes. So that's the thing. It's like, yes, it's a very expensive keyboard, but it's also the type of keyboard that you keep around for 15 years because all other keyboards suddenly feel sloppy. I have a 17-year-old Dell keyboard, none of the silly media buttons on it. Right, and half the media buttons don't work depending on the version of Windows you have, if you install the drivers or not, if you take it over to another machine. So, yeah. Okay, but we were talking microphones. We were talking microphones and we got derailed onto keyboards. I like to think of it as we took an alternate journey to keyboard land. We'll go with that. Derail success. Split keyboards. Yeah, split keyboards were their own interesting thing. I remember the old Microsoft Natural keyboard where half of it was on one side, half of it was on the other side. I actually had one that had a little mouse thing in the middle. And those were pretty good too. But I've noticed a lot of movement back from the ergonomic style where you have split hands and back to kind of straightforward again. And I don't know why that is. I'm not sure if later ergonomic research has said that it wasn't as effective as before, or if manufacturers just didn't sell enough of them. I actually don't know. That would be interesting. If somebody in chat knows, let us know. But back to microphones. there's a grade of microphone somewhere in Blue isn't the only seller of good quality microphones at reasonable prices. There are other contenders in that space. But frankly, even if I have a little lapel mic right here, which is not great quality, but it's reasonable quality and does a pretty decent job of recording audio. The nice part about it is that you can get it right close to you and speak into it like you normally would, and it'll pick that up. Versus the a stand microphone, you kind of have to make sure you're at an appropriate distance from the microphone, that you're not directly on it, because you don't want the buh, puh, fuh sounds to explode, to pop. The plosives, if you will. And that's why I'm standing over to the side of the mic, actually. To try to limit my plosives, because I am powerful plosively. So you have to make sure that everything's set up appropriately, that you're angled correctly, and then you have to wonder, well, do I put it on a stand? Do I have it on a standalone mic stand? Do I have a boom arm on a desk? Do I just put it on the desk? Those considerations matter for a stand microphone. They matter a lot less for a lapel mic, obviously, because you just attach it here. It's going to stay here, I mean, as long as you keep your shirt on, which hopefully you're doing throughout your talk. And then you just roll with that. There are levels above this, but basically that low to mid range, you've got low end laptop microphone, or $5 cheap USB microphone. You've got low to mid range, where you start getting into the Blue Yeti, the Blue Snowball, or other similar microphones. USB based, they have a condenser built in. They do all the work most of the work is done in software. Some of the work is done in the microphone itself, but the downside is that it's going to pick up a lot of ambient noises. Once you get up to higher end professional microphones, the difference between them is a microphone like this. This is the Shure SM7B. It's a fairly expensive microphone. It needs about 60 decibels of gain before you're going to be able to hear a word that I'm saying through this microphone. So between this mic and my computer, I have to add 60 decibels of gain. The benefit to doing that is any sound that's around me is not going to get picked up. So there's water running in the other room. I could have a fan on. I can have a plane fly overhead. You're not going to hear any of that stuff because it's not loud enough to be registered by the microphone. Between the microphone and the computer, there's going to be a few pieces of equipment. The Heil Pr40, by the way, as Mike points out, that's another really good microphone. I'm recommending this because it's the one that I have. It's the one that Anthony recommended to me. It's the one that Pluralsight recommended to Anthony. It works really well. It is surprisingly, this microphone has been around for decades. I think it was introduced in the 70s, if I remember right. Maybe even the 60s. But been around for a while. The Heil, I'm pretty sure, has also been around for quite some time. Because once you get into this range, this is, like Anders points out, this is the expensive range. This is definitely not where you need to be if I just want to create some content, if I want to present at a user group or present at Past Summit or something. You don't need to be at this level, not at all, because the microphone is not even the most expensive thing that I'm going to talk about here. But these microphones have been around for decades. They work really well. You'll see them at concerts. You'll see them in recording studios. And then you get to the next step. So the next step is called a preamp. The whole idea of the preamp is I need 60 decibels of gain for this. Well, I've got a preamp right here that gives me 60 decibels of gain. And I can look into it. This is, by the way, the DBX 286S. See if Mike can pull that up. But This preamp is actually it's a 1U rack mount sized, so it's got rack mount screws on it. You could actually mount it into a rack. I don't have a rack here to mount it into, so I've just got it sitting in front of me. But there are a lot of settings around gain and enhancement. So add gain to this microphone so that people can hear me. Removing noise. Removing S sounds or limiting the S sound. It's called a de-esser. Reducing gain. So I can take out strange noises that wouldn't come from a human. You can have audio within this certain frequency changed. So you could say outside of this range, change the ratio to essentially quiet the audio and feed that output into a converter. Incidentally, I also have in between a cloud lifter. So a cloud lifter gives you about 25 decibels of audio gain. And that way, that gives me 25. There are no settings for the thing. I just plug in one XLR cable from here into the cloud lifter. The next one goes into my preamp. 25 decibels right there. That way, my preamp is adding about 35 or to 40 decibels. And that way, I can speak pretty quietly. I'm definitely not raising my voice, and I can see it's loud. It may actually be a little too loud. I've been playing around with this a little today. So Anders says, can it make my voice sound good? As you can tell from me, the answer is no, but if you pay enough money, it'll get close. I was joking that I got to find out the device that drops my voice 3 octaves so I can sound like Anthony. So he's got a definite voice for radio. He's very, very good at that part. But you have this preamp, and the whole preamp adds gain, but also, like I mentioned, takes out a lot of distortion, takes out a lot of noise. And this is stuff that your Yeti won't do. With a Yeti, you can use software like Voice Meter. Voice Meter is there's a free version of this, there's a paid version of this, but it's basically software for what is it? They call it an audio mechanic, but basically it is an audio mixer and works really well, especially if you do want to stay in that low to mid tier where I'll pay $50 for a microphone, but I don't want to spend low four digits on a whole setup. Because like Anders says, unless you're actively getting paid for this, if your job is to create content, yeah, go splurge on this. But if you're not getting paid to create content, you don't need this to sound good online. You can sound good with a $100 Yeti microphone or a $100 Snowball or a $70 equivalent. Leaf blowers are the bane of my existence. Yeah, I could see that. And there could probably be a leaf blower blowing right outside. You wouldn't be able to pick it up here. So you have this, you could have Voice Meter. Hey, there's the cat, the attack cat. Mike was telling a story before we went live where the cat jumped on him during a stand-up.
Yeah.
I can see why. That is definitely a jumpable approach vector. So
I can tell my posture's bad.
That's right. So previously I used Voice Meter to do a lot of the mixing, to do a lot of the noise correction, acting as a gate. The whole idea of a gate is if the volume level isn't above a certain point, you don't have a certain number of decibels, then it won't register. It won't actually send that audio through the microphone, or won't send it to the computer, or won't send it from the computer on to somewhere else. So that's what a noise gate does. A software noise gate, like in Voice Meter, the microphone has sent that into the computer, and it's trying to figure out, okay, this level is below the gate, so don't send forward. Once you've crossed the gate, okay, now start sending. But the downside is that noise, that surrounding noise, that ambient noise, once you break the noise gate, that ambient noise is still there. And there are ways to try to limit that. There are ways to compress some of the noise. You can do that in software. You can get reasonably good at it. I had a reasonably good setup for the Yeti, and that does not compare to a hardware noise gate. What this preamp is doing for noise protection, significantly better. You can definitely tell if you pick up an old episode of Shop Talk and listen and compare, there's a definite audio difference. So there's a reason that this is an order of magnitude more expensive if you need to go down that road. But again, you certainly don't have to go down that road to get good enough for 95, 98% of use cases. Even doing paid content delivery, you can still get good quality in a quiet room, in a quiet area with a $70 to $100 microphone. You don't need the $1,000 setup. Let's see. Anders says, when I used my Bose headset, people would hear my dogs barking at the front door 3 floors down. I couldn't hear them at all. That's the nice thing about noise canceling.
Bose is awesome. Just expensive. Really expensive.
Yeah. Actually, I've got Sony headphones. They aren't as good at the noise canceling unless you're on an airplane or a train or something where it's a constant loud noise. So I could mow my lawn with those earphones, and it would be really great at protection there. I could be on an airplane. It would cut down a huge amount of that engine noise, which I understand you love the engine noise. But if I heard a dog bark, yeah, that dog barking would be picked up. Unless I had music. Then, if music's on, then no, you can't hear a thing. You don't have full studios? I mean, I do, but these folks don't.
I mean, almost.
It's pretty close. You've got a producer even.
That's true. She's the boss. I was gonna say, I think I put this in chat, but in terms of expensive gear, or if you want to do YouTube videos or start out, Pluralsight is obviously you're gonna be more advanced for that. But if you want to do YouTube videos or you're practicing, I've been very lucky with just like eBay. So these are the Jabra Evolve 80, and they retail for like $360, and I got these for about $90 used, and then you wipe them down for sure. But I've had some pretty good success with that. So you don't necessarily, if it's a popular item, it might be used, or like Mala said, I thought Mala's advice was fantastic. Like, a lot of people have equipment they buy, they don't use it, they don't set it up, and why not, a year later, give it to a friend? I mean, you can do those things as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely a way to do it. It's a way to save some cash, especially if you know what you're looking for. And if you don't know what you're looking for, it can be a little more tricky. But if you're familiar in the area and you really have a good understanding of, say, different components, I have the DBX 286S. Okay, well, A, that's not the only preamp that DBX makes. B, DBX is not the only company making preamps. So you may be able to find something that's better quality, at least as good quality, possibly less expensive, if you're hunting on sites like eBay. And if you know people, if you happen to be in the area, there may be situations where, oh, yeah, I found it on Craigslist because somebody had a studio that they picked up all this stuff in an estate auction and wanted to get rid of it. And a lot of this equipment, old doesn't mean bad. I mean, frankly, you get some audio equipment from the 70s, this stuff still works. the stuff is still just as good. This cable here, this is an XLR cable that feeds into this preamp. The XLR cable has been a standard for decades, and it's not a computer standard. It's an audio equipment standard. So a preamp that somebody had for their garage band could potentially still work just as well for you today, because there's one other piece of equipment, and that is your converter. So this is a, if I can pull it up, there we go. This is the Scarlett Solo by Focusrite, and it has USB output and either XLR or TRS input. TRS is 1/4 inch cable for instruments. So if you play electric guitar, for example, you're generally going to have that TRS output into your amp. But the whole point of that Scarlett Solo is take the analog audio signal, convert it to digital over USB, send it into my computer. That's the fancy modern equipment. And this one is kind of the entry level for what Focusrite has. It will also do gain. It'll also do a little bit of audio cleanup. I actually have all that turned off. I do all of my cleanup in the preamp. But yeah, as you go with this, you may find some great deals just from, I had a garage band that broke up, or the stuff's been sitting in someone's garage for 30 years because they bought it in the 80s and it was really good equipment. And as long as it's well maintained, it's still going to be high quality. I don't think that you'll see a tremendous amount of improvement in design over time. The microphone is 50 years old. The preamp, I actually don't know when this preamp was designed. It may be relatively recently designed. The cloud lifter has been around for a while. So this is all equipment that's been around, and if you're into music, if you're into music development, you're going to have a much better handle on some of what can be alternated for equipment. And you could bring that in, and generally will get really high quality. And this is how you go from good quality to worth paying money for quality. And of course, worth paying money for quality, really you only want to go there when people are actually paying you money for it. Or if you really need, if you're desperate for that tax write-off, because IRS, this is all for business purposes. 100% for business purposes. Mala's got a drop, so we'll see Mala in the next episode of Shop Talk. Okay, let's see what we've got. Looks like I've kept abreast of chat. So let's see what else Solomon asks. So the context is Solomon is another presenter who is going to be at Pass Summit this year. So well done to Solomon there. We'll be able to see him present later on. And
do you know I'm sorry, what's the topic?
That's a good question. Let's find out.
Sharp.
So we're going to hit Pass Data Community Summit. Anders is the only person not to have been picked. There's a chance you actually were picked, but just never responded to the email. Module signing. So Solomon is talking about module signing, using certificates to grant higher level permissions without compromising security. And if you have not been to his modulesigning.info website, definitely go to that. Module signing is another reason. That by itself is a reason to go sign up for Pass Summit. Okay, software. What kind of software specifically for recording presentations? And there are several options. So Solomon mentions Flashback, Camtasia, OBS Studio. And OBS Studio does have a learning curve. It's worth learning. Mike, you're just getting started with it, right?
Yeah, you exposed me to it, and I was very grateful. And then I watched some additional videos from Scott Hanselman, another Microsoft person. I've gotten into him and C# Fritz. I've been following both of them, and he has some excellent videos on using, building a green screen and creating scenes. And I'm still learning, and I've also kind of sat over your shoulder a couple of times when pre-pandemic you came to the Duke site, and you were also working on your setup at that time. So OBS Studio is great, and I was successful in creating an advertisement for Past Summit. I haven't sent it out on my social media because I'm kind of locked out of my LinkedIn for some reason, because my authenticator, I lost it. So I have to send them like my license or something crazy. But yes, OBS Studio, really great, and there's some great videos online to help get up to speed.
Yeah. So this is going to be a free option. It does take some effort to get into, but there are a few benefits to it. One is that OBS Studio has some great green screen capabilities. If you have a proper green screen like this, then it works out much better. But if you don't have a proper green screen, there's still some ability in there. It does have a lot of plugins where, let's say you don't have $1,000 of audio equipment that you've insanely thrown at a problem, and you just have a regular microphone, a Yeti or something. There are plugins within OBS Studio that will allow you to do noise gating, allow you to do compression, allow you to do other stuff. So with 3 to 4 weeks to submit the video, is there time to learn OBS Studio? Yeah, frankly, it's the type of thing where if you put in a good afternoon, you're going to have enough to get by. And it may take you a long time to master OBS Studio, where you're like a producer switching between scenes, transitioning, doing all of that stuff. But for a presentation like that, you're not going to need that level. And so you could easily use OBS Studio. You could actually get started with it in 10 minutes if you didn't have yourself on video. If it was just your desktop, you're just showing the screen and that's it. Give yourself 10 minutes, 20 minutes to configure, and that's good enough to go.
Wait, is this the person who did SQL Sharp?
This is Solomon's SQL Sharp.
All right. I don't want to be self-deprecating too much, but I'm like a quarter as smart as you, and I figured it out really quick. So you're gonna, boom, you got it.
Yeah, there are some good channels on YouTube that do a great job of setting up OBS Studio. So if the plan is just to be your desktop, then you can set this up in about 10-20 minutes and roll with it. Camtasia.
Two screens helps though, because it gets confusing if it's one screen.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It does the mirror effect and it gets confusing.
Yeah, so you do want to have 2 monitors. One monitor just for OBS Studio, the other one just for your whatever you're displaying. But otherwise, yeah, it's really simple to set up for that level. If you wanted to include camera, if you wanted to include switching between scenes where we pop, here's the desktop, now here's me superimposed on the screen, that stuff takes a little bit longer to figure out. But for the basics, you can get there in 20 minutes. Let's see. Maddie Two Shoes says, I wanted to make a YouTube video for everything around streaming on Twitch and science and tech, software and game dev, but I didn't find the time yet. That would be great. I think that there's absolutely room for people to share what they've done, what they've accomplished, and help the next person. Everything that I've been able to do, I learned because somebody else had a video or a blog post or something that I was able to crib off of. And very, very poorly crib off of, and then slowly get a bit better over time to the point where it is not too bad. And a lot of the videos are about gaming streams, right? And science and tech is going to be a little different. You're not necessarily so interested in, I need to make sure that the playback quality of this is exactly right. That I want to make sure that I need to make sure I don't have as many frame drops. If you're just showing a static screen and talking, it's not as important, but you then need to worry about, let's make sure that font size is right. Let's make sure that everything is set up where I don't have any distractions on the screen. How to interact with chat. Yes. So that kind of stuff would be excellent. More people who talk about that, the better. That way we can all learn from it. And Andrew says, don't try to be Scott Hanselman on your first show. Absolutely. Again, people have put in tens of thousands of hours into this kind of stuff over their career. Scott Hanselman has spent thousands of hours, tens of thousands of hours getting to the point where he is. And if you watch his video and then you record something that's the same length and you watch them side by side, you say, oh my gosh, I look like an idiot. I can't put this out. But Scott Hanselman's a professional. This is the equivalent of, if I throw you in front of a teleprompter and have you read the news, you're not going to do nearly as well as the professional newscasters who've been doing it for decades. Those people can look at you, have this conversation, make it sound like they're not reading from a screen, not looking at the screen like this or anything like that. Just be very warm and endearing and not mispronounce the words of the Nigerian foreign minister. And also not say, stop, stammer, pause. Stuff will happen. Don't worry about it. If you get too bad about it, okay, you can do some editing. But the occasional, no big deal. Camtasia. If you have a license to Camtasia, I like that software. There's a lot of other software in the space as well. I did get a free license for Camtasia, so that's a big part of why I use it. As a data platform MVP, they give me a free license. They don't ask me for anything in return, so I'm okay with that. It's not like I'm officially shilling for them. But I do like the software, and I use that a lot. I actually use that for post-processing of videos from OBS Studio. So with OBS Studio, I hit start recording. I can do my raw recording in clips. So maybe I have one demo at a time, or I have a segment of me talking to the camera or reading, going through the slides. And I can splice together those different clips. I can have mild transitions between them and generate something that looks like a complete presentation without having to do it in one take. And OBS Studio, not going to be for that type of video editing. So you'll probably want something that edits videos. Camtasia is a good entry-level option. There are some free entry-level options as well. Are you on Discord on Mac OS? I am not a Mac user, so probably not. But I don't have a Discord for TriPass. I do use Discord for some things, but that's just more personal usage than anything else. And they should be, okay, so those are the Scott Hanselman videos. Just wondering why you're not running the green screen. Oh, so I'm not running the green screen because the video conferencing software that I'm using actually needs my camera. It can't use OBS Studio because I'm also broadcasting through OBS Studio. So for that purpose, I'm just using raw camera instead of processed through OBS. So just makes it easier when I'm delivering a presentation by myself instead of with the other excellent co-hosts of Shop Talk, most of whom have found their way out by now. Then yeah, I would have a proper green screen setup. So OBS Studio does not do editing. No, it is for content video creation. It's not for video editing. You would want some sort of additional tool, either free or paid, to do that editing. And yeah, some of them will be pretty easy. Like Flashback looks easy enough to use and it's cheaper than Camtasia, but might not have enough features. So I'm not familiar enough with Flashback to be able to give you solid advice on that. I do use Camtasia. It works well enough for what I need. And typically, the key things that you want to have there, you want to have some ability to combine together video clips. So I take those clips, I want to be able to split them where I may have a pause or I made a mistake and I want to start over. So you split, you cut, you snip that out. You may want to separate audio from video. Quite often I'll have the video part and then I'll do an audio overlay. Or sometimes I'll do audio first and then I do video overlay to fit that audio. So I may be narrating through a set of steps and I'll have the script that I've written out first, read the script, save that as audio only, import that audio into Camtasia, and while that audio is playing, I can then record using OBS Studio my activities. I don't take that audio from the video recording because at that point I may have something where I want to pause this because it's going to take 10 minutes for a compute instance to spin up. So I just want to cut to when that's done and then, okay, bring that in. Or I may need to speed up a certain clip where, all right, we're processing data in Power BI and it's just churning, it's just sitting there for 20 seconds. And I want to reduce that churn time to 5 seconds because that's the time that I allocated where I'm vamping about whatever topic, waiting for the data to load. So clip speed up, that's a nice bit of functionality. But beyond that, there's a fair amount in Camtasia that's helpful, that can be really useful to go to the next level. But if you just want something that I'm presenting, that's about all that I've needed. So Camtasia worthwhile. Equipment, fancy microphones with filters. So what Solomon's talking about there is a windscreen. And the whole point of the windscreen is to stop plosives. A plosive is that pff. So actually, I have a pretty thick windscreen on this, which you can see is technically I'm doing it wrong because I've got the basic windscreen and then I just put on the full windscreen. So technically I'm supposed to take this off and then Velcro this on. I may do that later, but I'm just trying it out today. So if I were to get right in front of here and talk with pong, puh, 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 you might hear like the pop with the P. Whereas if I'm over here and I go pong, pop, 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 you're not really hearing that pop nearly as much. That's what the windscreen is for. It's to take some of that pressure that's coming out of your mouth for the puh sounds or the buh sounds and disperse it so it doesn't go hit the microphone directly. That reduces the pop, and that's why it's called a pop filter. Do you need one of those? It's helpful. Like if you just get a Yeti, the Yeti is by itself, it's just a metal screen. Or the Snowball, just a metal screen. And there's no filter on there. And so you may put a little round filter in front of it. That's like $10 you can get online. This is a case for mics that are dynamic range. Condenser mics don't have that issue, Maddie says. However, condenser mics pick up more ambient noise as the pickup range is much bigger. Yeah, that's a classic trade-off. So very good point. And I guess it comes down to know your microphone. Understand what the characteristics are of the microphone. And one of the ways you can do that is just simple recordings. Try out your recording. Try standing in a slightly different area. Maybe you have to go a little further, a little closer. Figure out how much the difference is. If you're over here, are you getting a lot less volume than if you're right up in here? And if so, you may want to adjust for that. You may have a hardware setting that's wrong, or that's just the characteristic. Like that's just how the microphone works, and you may just have to realize, okay, I've got to be pretty still in order for this to work. A lot of microphones in that range, that price range, though, are going to pick up a lot, and so you can be a little further away and not have much of a difference. And in that case, you're worried more about making sure you're not head onto the microphone so that when you do say a word with a p sound in it, air pressure is going this way. It's not coming directly into the microphone. The microphone can still pick up the word, and then you get a pleasant p sound instead of a bam. I have a condenser and use OBS's automatic filter for noise reduction, plus the standard open-close gates, and it's quite good for a $60 mic. Right, and so that's where when you put in a bit of time and effort and you tune it to yourself, then you can get really good quality without having to drop a huge amount of money. It's the tuning it for yourself part that takes a bit of time, because you can find somebody else's settings, but those settings, maybe they work for that person's voice, that person's microphone setup, that person's room, and all of the other equipment around them, and the way they speak. And it may work well for you, but you may want to tweak it a little bit just to make sure. And so, following up with this, future plans to do more short videos to post on YouTube, but not to stream or even do things weekly. Have a headset with a separate microphone, but I'm not sure that's good enough. And so Solomon was asking about what's the benefit of the fancy microphones. I think we've talked about that in some detail. I don't know what your headset with separate microphone audio quality is, but if it's like a $20 headset mic, then that's the type of thing that's good enough for a company call, but probably not good enough for getting good audio quality, much less great audio quality. But for what you are looking for, you're presenting for Past Summit, you're putting up some YouTube videos that are technical in nature. Even something like a $30, $40 microphone, $50 microphone, if you pick a good one, that can be absolutely good enough. For cheaps, easy solution, get a gaming headset which has a directional microphone in front, like an Astra A10, and you can use them on your console as well. Or Anders says the Bose headset would be good enough for the occasional non-paid content. Both of those could be options. Yeah, I mean, I had a Turtle Beach headset that I used for a little while, and it had a directional microphone on it. So the gaming headset that I picked up for an Xbox and actually worked pretty well for getting good quality audio. But even the lapel mic that I have, I think I got it for $20. It's at least decent quality. It's certainly enough to get you a presentation without people wondering, why is this man's voice so scratchy? So that's where I would say the sweet spot is. You know, you look in that $50 to $100 range for microphones, you can get good quality, do some research and reviews, look, like Maddie mentioned, for gaming headsets. That would be a good option. You may look for a separate lapel microphone, and then once you're in there, try out different physical setups. You might want a windscreen. You know, a lot of microphones will come with a really cheap windscreen. That may be good enough. If you keep the microphone in a good position, it's not going to matter too much. But if you want to speak directly into the thing, then you may want to have a little better of a windscreen. And that may be the $10 pop filter that you can buy. But I wouldn't go too much further than that for your use case, Solomon. The Jabra Evolve, that's Mike's recommendation right there. And you can hear his audio quality. It comes through pretty well. No post-processing is done here. This is all just going straight live from a web chat.
Yeah. Yes. Pop. Yes.
That was my opportunity for Mike to actually get a word in edgewise. as rare as it is on Shop Talk.
I don't know how you get an Xbox. That was my big
revelation. Oh no, that was the Xbox 360. That was a headset that I bought like 10 years ago. 10 plus years ago. So I've had it for a little while, and it does work pretty well for the job. I mean, it was not a really expensive headset, and the audio quality from it was pretty good. I don't like headsets, so I don't wear them, and but if you are a headset person, there are good options there. Now, the thing about headsets is making sure that the microphone is far enough away from your face so that when you're breathing, you don't get the Darth Vader effect. But yeah, so that Mike's got it set up where you're not hearing him as he breathes in and out. And with a cheap one, you can end up in that scenario. And I think that's going to do it for us tonight. We're actually a few minutes over, but that's okay. I think we had a good topic. Check that out if you do want to learn more about Anthony Nocentino's setup. Not just the recording gear. We went off on the deep end with recording gear, but if you want to learn more about desktop setup, if you want to learn more about any of the other stuff that he uses to record videos for Pluralsight, go check all that stuff out. And otherwise, one last thing I want to talk about is tomorrow, Hope Foley is going to talk to us about Azure Synapse Analytics. So come check that out. Meetup.com/TriPass. Come check us out tomorrow night, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, when Hope talks to us about Azure Synapse Analytics. And hopefully we'll see you again soon. Until then, everybody, take care.